So this session is From Lab to Living Room, Bridging the Science Communication Divide. Our speaker is Addy Valdez with Utah Lake Authority. Addy, take it away. Thank you.
All right. My name is Addy Valdez, and I work for Utah Lake Authority. My technical title is Conservation and Education Programs Manager. But today, I'm coming to you not with my agency, but just as a scientist, because I can probably take a poll here, and I'm gonna right now, that a lot of you are scientists. So can everyone raise their hand if you're a scientist in this room? Okay, so pretty good chunk. Okay, then who is just like maybe works for local government? Anyone here local government? Okay. State government? Okay. How about federal government? Oh yeah, barely. Okay, and then how about just members of the public? All right, good. All right, and I'm sure, how about nonprofits? That's another big one. Yeah, all right, there we go. I was like, I'm missing one. Well, great. I'm glad to see so many different faces here and so many different varieties of agencies in this one place. So I'm here to talk to you today because science is also just known as discovery. That's the main point of why we all become scientists. We're all curious. We all ask questions. But it's also storytelling. It's if our discoveries don't reach people in ways that they don't understand and trust, these stories lose their power and our discoveries mean nothing. So today, I'm looking to share why communication is often harder than the science itself and tools that can make our work clear, relatable, and much more actionable. So science communications definitely matters. It's not a lot of us go into science to work on communication and talk to people. A lot of us are actually a little antisocial and don't want to talk to people. We love our peers, but we don't like speaking in front of crowds, or we don't like talking to members of the public. And I get it. I'm that same person. But it's really important because to still have clear messaging, because scientists are trained to hedge. We're trained to quantify, to qualify, to be precise. But public discourses thrives on clarity and confidence. Precision often creates confusion, and the public doesn't rely on that. It relies on clarity. And we often speak in a lot of these caveats, but we need confidence. So this mismatch means critical messages often get lost. So think of climate change. The science is clear, but the communication often isn't. There's always mixed messaging, and no one really knows what's going on ever. And the stakes of this are really high because miscommunication can fuel controversy, mistrust, and inaction. It just creates a whole bundle of mess. So I want to ask you another question. We're keeping this really lively today. What do you think causes more public disagreement? The science itself or how it's communicated? So raise your hand if you think it's just science. Raise your hand if you think it's the communication. Or maybe it's both equally. Okay. And there's no wrong answer. In all these polls I'm asking you today, there's no wrong answer. And one of the things that I want you to recognize is that this is also just a big challenge in translation. So again, scientists often speak in jargon. We have a lot of terms that we use. We are not just converting words though, we're trying to bridge worldviews. So jargon often can alienate. Terms like anthropogenic or fecundity or non-point source can be really confusing to people who aren't trained in this. And they usually mean little outside of academia or our workplaces. And so these trusts and values that we instill in these words and these stories are fragile. If people feel like scientists don't share their values, they will often tune out. So when we speak in that jargon that people don't understand, it sounds like we're speaking a foreign language. Like when I go to my accountant every year, I'm like, what are you even saying? This makes absolutely no sense. And I think it really relates back to Dr. Ned Carney's talk today. She really set me up for a great talk about having intellectual humility, being able to recognize that you may be a pro at your job and you may be a pro in your field, but definitely nobody else is. And it's your job to be able to communicate your job. And so media ecosystems can also make this very complex. It often amplifies these extremes. The world of social media today is a very complicated place. And a lot of times our nuance that we've worked all our lives to create and all of our work to curate gets flattened into sound bites or headlines or titles. So things like scientists kill ducks to see why they're dying. And it's like, that is the most misleading title. Of course they're going to be dying, but it's often to do autopsies and actually do some investigating. But it can get really lost in the sauce, if you will, of our crazy media ecosystems. And this is why audience research is really important. So the very first question I ask you is, where are you guys all from? That's audience research. It can be as simple as that. What kind of sectors are you speaking to, and what communities are they coming from? And audience research is going to be the backing to all of the tools that we have here today. So tool number one that you can utilize in order to be a better communicator with your communities and actually get your messaging out there effectively is mismatched values. So this is defined as when scientific framing clashes with public values. And this happens a lot. We are in the era of anti-science. It's no longer the 70s. Science is not trusted anymore. And so this takes a lot of work. For example, carbon emissions, you can talk about ppms or air quality all you want, but people aren't going to care. But what they do care about is protecting their children's future, or protecting the future for their children's future generations. So it's important to reframe your messaging in shared values. And Dr. Ned Carney talked about this as well today, about even fingernail polish. That's a shared value. I get my nails done, and I love seeing other girls get their nails designed. And that's just one way that you can share a value with somebody who you may not connect with in any other way. But sharing that value creates a bridge of your worldviews and your storytelling to be more effective with your science. So which value framing feels more persuasive to you guys? There's technical. Anyone for technical? So like we're talking about, all right, this is my language. You're speaking my nerd language. Yeah, I get that. And then moral. So protecting kids, protecting your family or future generations. Or economic. Saving money. You want to save money on your bills, your power. There's so many different examples of values that are important to the people that you are talking to. And again, this is where audience research comes in to help. Ask what values matter most to your community, and then align your framing and your messaging with that. So I work at Utah Lake, so I specifically am trying to target audiences and communities around Utah Lake to get them to use the lake more and change their perception. But this can apply across anywhere that you work. Tool number 2. Psychological distance. We're kind of getting into some fun psychology here. And I do not claim to be an expert in any way in any of this. This is just something I take a profound interest in. So often enough, people care more about the near-term local impacts instead of things far away. The farther away an issue feels, geographically, temporally, socially, spatially, the less urgent it seems to them. So it's important to bring your science home. Talk about local impacts, immediate relevance, because people are often going to just care more about something that's affecting them directly. So for example, we're in Salt Lake City. Global climate change is affecting snow peaks and sea level rise. Well, we're not by the ocean. Nobody cares. But it is affecting our air quality, and it is affecting how our snowpack is affecting ski resorts and how people recreate. So bringing that to home to people, what they actually care about and that they're participating in, can really drive your messaging home to be more impactful. And there's so many types of psychological distance as well. There's social, myself versus what other people are experiencing. Temporal, this is a me problem now, not my future self can deal with that later. There's spatial, something that's far away, maybe a continent, rainforest versus here in a desert. Or there's experiential. So this is something I'm going through right now, or is this something I'm imagining, or that I have to imagine I will be going through in the future? So to use this, it's just important to make science personal. And again, audience research comes to play here. What local issues resonate with your audience? Air quality, water safety, job security. Anchor your science in these. And then another really, really big one that is so important in our age of social media ecosystems is combating misinformation. Myths spread so much faster than actual corrections. So correcting these myths is not enough. We have to pre-bunk. Prepare people before this misinformation hits. So it's like teaching people how to conduct their own sound research and how to recognize when something might be fishy, or this might not be actually what is the data representing. And, there's a lot of Facebook articles and all of these things that come out that, take pieces and pics of whatever data they can find. And you can't stop those from coming out. You really can't. But what you can do is teach people how to recognize that that might not be the best information out there. So modern medicine myths, there's so many out there right now with vaccines, pharmaceuticals, and I don't care what your beliefs are, but there are things that you can find that are true and that there are false. And being able to give people the tools to recognize good information and bad information can really lead them to make better choices for themselves and stick to your messaging. So using pre-bunking is great, but also storytelling. We want to be able to talk to people in a way that matters. So kind of like what I'm doing right now. I want to be able to talk to you like we're having a conversation, not that I'm lecturing you. And we want to use trusted messengers. So this can be people in your community like church leaders, teachers, faith figures, and equip them with the accurate science or the ways to teach people how to pre-bunk. Because not everyone cares about me. I'm just a scientist up here talking. Nobody wants to listen. But people who are more involved in your community and your audience can really be more impactful. And then just to add another question in, because I love doing this, when you're hearing conflicting info, what sources do you trust most? And there's really no wrong answer. There's scientists. I trust scientists. Yeah, that's probably going to be a big chunk of us here. Friends or family. That's another big one. Media. I feel like that's nobody. Maybe some. Or community leaders. So like your local government or your local faith leaders. Yeah. So there is a lot of ways to find good information and good people to disseminate that for you. Tool number 4, this is a fun one, social norms, especially here in Utah. So social norms is basically behavior. Our behavior as humans are shaped by what other people do. We're usually making a choice on our own. We're usually looking to others to decide that choice for us. So for example, highlighting positive behaviors can be very, very helpful. So most people in your community recycle. Most people in your community leave leaves on their lawn. You can take whatever messaging you're looking for and use the positive end, because that's going to be much more effective than saying, oh, some people don't recycle or some people do. You want to say a large majority of people do. And you can use this by doing audience research. Yet again, what behaviors are already common in your communities or in your audience? And can you amplify those as norms? And it's really funny because humans are just such social learners, and we just always look to others to decide what's normal. And this is some way that you can really, really use social norms to your advantage, and especially in our Utah communities where that can be really, really intense. And then linking goals to everyday life. Science can often feel very abstract unless it's tied to our daily routines, to our daily lives. It must connect to our everyday goals, our health, our finances, our conveniences. Because I even find myself that if it's not convenient for me, like making a smoothie in the morning with a big blender, I'm not going to make one. It's just too much of a hassle. It's too much to clean. So when people see more direct benefits that they can engage with, they will engage. So for example, energy efficiency. You can talk all you want, say, oh, well, this is great for the environment. We're using less energy. This is less lithium, blah, blah, blah. But really what they're going to care about is you're going to save money on your bills. If you're not using as much energy, you're going to have way less to pay, and it's going to be nicer on your wallet. And that's a great way to get the same message out, just in a different reframing that is better for people's everyday lives. So if you can connect your research outcomes to personal goals of what people are having in your communities, then you can be much more effective with them. And so what everyday goals matter most to your community? Saving money, protecting your kids, convenience. If you can link your science to those, the farther it will go. And then tool number 6, giving audience actionable items. The world is so overwhelming. It's dark, it's gloomy, and it's scary. And sometimes that can make you want to shut down instead of want to make the world a better place. So science should empower action. We want people to do things. If we're just doing science and there's nothing to do with it, then it's kind of pointless. So information without action is just noise. People need to know what they can do. So for example, if you want to talk about climate change and that's the main part of your messaging, encourage your audience to switch to LED light bulbs. Or if it's health, you can encourage them to go downtown and get vaccinated. Or conservation, plant native species in your garden instead of horticultural ones. Go to Norfolk Native Plants, if you will. And so every science message should end with a clear and actionable step. Something that people can do, that they can latch onto and say, I'm going to create my own firsthand experience with this science that I can incorporate into my everyday life, so it becomes a part of my place and my sense of being. Because action builds agency, and when people act, they feel empowered and not overwhelmed. So again, ending with clear, doable steps can make all the difference in the world. So I just gave you a bunch of tools, 6 of them. But how do we actually integrate these? How do you use them in your everyday job or your workspace? You can use them in any type of form or shape you want. I used it at the very beginning of this presentation just by audibly asking what people are doing here. So these tools really overlap. There was a lot of overlap in what we talked about with values, social norms, everyday life. They all kind of run together a little bit. They create really powerful communication strategies together. So again, I will just continue to hammer this, that knowing your audience makes all the difference in the world. Integration starts with audience research. Who are they? What do they value? What norms matter and what goals drive the people you are talking to? And you might have different audiences at different points. So today I have a mixed science audience that is really engaged with this type of material. But if I'm talking to the public who, have no idea about science or anything like this, I'm going to tailor my messaging. I'm not going to use some of this jargon. And so you can tailor your messaging to whoever you're speaking to, whether it's K-12 or policymakers. There are ways to do that. But knowing your audience makes all the difference about how effective it can actually be. Because once you know your audience, you can tailor your framing, reduce your psychological distance, align with their values, highlight all the social norms that they may have, and start connecting to daily life. So a great case study that I think really represents Salt Lake and some of the issues that we're going through right now is air quality. So air quality is a perfect example of how science communication can succeed or fail depending on how it's being framed. If I say AQI is 150, most people aren't going to connect with that, and they don't know what that means. This is a value mismatch. Scientific precision doesn't connect with public values. Instead, I could say, today's air is unhealthy for your children to play outside. And air pollution often feels distant. It feels far away. This isn't my problem. This is in Beijing. This is in China. But it's here right now. And so today's air is unhealthy for children. Something happening in Beijing or decades from now. Time is a big part of that as well. That's psychological distance. Bring it home. Your neighborhood's air today is unsafe for outdoor play. We want to bring it home to the people's front and backyards. And misinformation is spreading quickly. Like myths that masks don't help or that air pollution only affects the elderly. You can combat this with pre-bunking and trusted messengers in your community, like pediatricians, local health departments. But you can see how a lot of these tools align with each other. They all kind of overlap to create that same messaging that we want to get this out there, our science, our messaging, whatever it may be, in a clear and effective way that people are more cued to tune into. So in general, this is all about reframing science communication. Communication really isn't an afterthought. It's truly integral to what our research is here as scientists and as members of the science community. Because without this storytelling, discovery doesn't reach the people it's even meant to serve. What's the point of doing our research if it's not trying to make the world a better place for our future generations or for the people that we love now? Our job is not just to discover, not just to research, but to translate, connect, and empower. So our formula is discovery plus storytelling equals impact. It equals behavior changes. And that should be our ultimate goal, to make a difference. So I challenge everyone to do better, because science is strongest when it's understood, trusted, and acted upon. And some of the key takeaways that we can get from this is clarity, reliability, and trust. And making sure you know your audience can go a long, long way. And you can do that on so many different scales, whatever your needs can fit. Because your role as a communicator is just as vital as your role as a researcher. So let's commit to making science not just discovered, but lived. And so I would love to challenge everybody to make science serve the people that it's meant to benefit. And I will ask you one last question. Which tool will you try to use first in your own communication once you leave here? And with that, I will take questions. Just to preface everyone, I was very, very nervous for today, and I was very sick before this, so I sound like I smoked a pack before this, but I didn't, I promise. And thank you for bearing with me.
Addy, is fear-based messaging effective?
Oh, yeah, fear-based messaging, that's a really great question. So again, of all the topics I hit today, there's so much more that you can go into depth with all of these kind of tools and strategies. Fear-based messaging can be effective because some people are driven by fear, the scarcity mindset that the world is going to end tomorrow. But you can also use positive messaging to encourage people to do more. I think they both can be effective. It just depends on what side you're trying to play it on and what your messaging really is. Climate change can be one that's really used with fear tactics, like drawing. There's a famous article magazine, I think out of Time, that Lady Liberty, the statue, is falling in the ocean. It's about climate change, and that's a great example of fear tactics, getting people to feel nervous about what's coming. And it can be effective to get people to pay attention and see that something's really happening in front of them. But you can also use positive ones as well that encourages them to actually take action and do something too. So there's so many more tools to this.
How do you identify trusted messengers for your community specifically?
Yeah, so the question was, how do you identify trusted messengers? Well, I think this starts with your audience research. So if you're going to people in here, I know my audience is a lot of science people associated with the science community. You are likely going to trust somebody that is involved in your community already. So somebody who is not an outsider, somebody who is already in your community. So for us, it might be someone who is leading this symposium, or maybe a head staff of Division of Natural Resources, or the Great Salt Lake Commissioner's Office. I think being able to identify what groups and organizations or people are important to your group that's already existing. So if I'm talking to a stake in Utah County, their stake leader is probably going to be a very trusted messenger for them. And you can tailor that to any group that you're going to. But again, that audience research of starting with, who is my group? Who seems to do all of the talking and do all the organizing? They're probably going to be the people who are trusted them.
How can you show that you're a trustworthy resource, even if you don't have all the answers? Because a lot of the times as scientists, we don't know everything.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the question was, how do you be a trusted scientist when things are really overwhelming and can be really confusing? I think building relationships with your stakeholders is really important. Getting to know them, what's important to them. And again, having intellectual humility, knowing that they might be more of an expert in something than you are, and you're more of an expert than they are. And having that compassion to know what's going on in their life and want to be a part of it, and at least engage with them so you can find some similarities to bridge your gap. Because finding those connections, even if it's just nails, will instantly bond you with somebody. And having that bond and that trust is key to having clear and effective communication, especially with people that you're trying to get them to change their behavior for your messaging.
How would you incorporate the arts in getting your message across?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would love to learn more from actual artists on how to do that as well. I think incorporating art into your messaging, again, just tailors to what community you're going for. If people are more interested in arts and they're more engaged with that, you could definitely utilize that in your messaging, and having clear infographics or graphic design that really incorporates artistic values, and being able to integrate those in how you're getting to your audience. I think there's a lot of ways. I haven't explored that option, but I think that's a really cool way to engage with different audiences that are oftentimes opposing to our science left brain side. So I think engaging with that other side of your brain, with that other side that's more creative, a little bit more free form, can be really great to engage with other people.
Thanks, Addy. A really great presentation. And just to add to the thought about intellectual humility, I just wanted to say that part of intellectual humility is also about suspending our own values. Like, for example, if you're working with people who are incarcerated, you may, as I do, disagree with the whole system that we have of mass incarceration, because it's systematically, there's a lot of injustice in it. It may not be effective. But if you want to get to that audience of people who are incarcerated or people who work in that system, then you have to, for the moment, say, I'm going to find out what the values of this system are, and I'm going to proceed with my science communication with that population, despite the fact that I don't believe in it. Same thing with Barbie, for example. That is a consumeristic, sort of horrible set of ideals, and yet it's a really effective way to communicate with young girls because that's the facts. So I think there's a little bit of a trick here for people who are, I think like many of us in this room, which is that we have a set of values that we hold as being very important. But if we do indeed if one of our goals is to expand the groups of people with whom we engage, then I think we have to do that. It doesn't mean you still can't call people on what you disagree with. For example, when we have been working with people who are incarcerated, we've been able to communicate with wardens and with officers and with the administrators who govern the Department of Corrections. And by being on the inside, by getting in there, we, I think in some ways, have been more effective than saying we need to abolish prisons. That's another tactic, but it's something different from saying I'm going to work with the system to get inside it. The second, and same with Barbie, that Mattel maybe will change the way that they portray Barbie because of the work that we were able to do with them. The other point I wanted to make was that when you talk about engaging with people who are trusted, we do that not only because of that single messenger who's trusted, but also because they know the networks. They have the existing networks to communicate with the body of people with whom they're involved. And so they can advise you and say, like, a newsletter article would be great for our newsletter, or a podcast would be great for our audience, or a set of visitors or tours or something would be appropriate for our audience. And very often we don't have access to those audiences. So your point about interacting and engaging with the trusted messenger is a really good one for lots of reasons. Thanks.
Yeah. Of course, yeah, thank you. That's all really great. I think those are really great points from an even better communicator who knows a lot more about this than I do. Yeah, I think those are all really great points that you kind of, in order to be a science communicator and get to these audiences you might not agree with, you have to be a chameleon. And that's kind of how I find what I try to implore for myself is being able to go someplace, interact with different people, and maybe not put your values out there, but really trying to engage, like, what is your messaging with the people that you are with for your job? And maybe along the way you can change some values and incorporate your own if you want to. But it is really fun to be able to do this kind of work. And I think the more you get into being a better communicator, the more you fall in love with it. And I'm not encouraging everybody here today to be a better communicator or to get out there and go talk your heart out at a conference. But even just people you see sit next to you, like, be brave and just try to get your messaging out there. Because again, one person every week should be able to get a lot of good messages out there. So thank you, everyone.